Hello everyone, so we're back and reading Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And today we're reading chapter 5, Dagon Alley. So let's get started. Harry woke up early the next morning. Although he couldn't tell it was daylight, he kept his eyes shut. It was a dream, he told himself firmly. I dreamed a giant called Hagrid came to tell me I was going to school for a wizard. But when I opened my eyes, I'll be at home in my cupboard. There was suddenly a loud tapping noise, and there's Aunt Petunia knocking on the door. Harry thought, his heart sinking, but he still didn't open his eyes. It had been such a good dream. Tap, tap, tap. All right, Harry mumbled. I'm getting up. He sat up, and Hagrid's heavy coat fell off him. The hut was full of sunlight. The storm was over. Hagrid himself was asleep on the collapsed sofa, and there was an owl rapping its claw on the window. A newspaper held it in its beak. Harry scrambled to his feet, so happy he felt as though a large balloon was swelling inside him. He went straight to the window and jerked it open. The owl swooped in and dropped the newspaper on top of Hagrid, who didn't wake up. The owl then fluttered onto the floor and began to attack Hagrid's coats. Don't do that. Harry tried to wave the owl out of the way, but it snapped its beak fiercely at him and carried on savaging the coat. Hagrid, said Harry loudly, there's an owl. Pay him. Harry grunted into the sofa. What? He won't paying for delivering the paper. Look in the pocket. Hagrid's coat seemed to be made of nothing but pockets. Bunches of key, slug pellets, ball of string, mince humbugs, tea bag. Finally, Harry pulled out a handful of strange-looking coin. Give him 5 nuts, said Hagrid sleepily. Nuts? The little bronze one. Harry counted out 5 little bronze coins, and the owl held out its leg so he could put the money in a small leather pouch, tied it. Then it flew off through the open window. Hagrid yawned loudly, sat up and stretched. Best be off, Harry. Lots to do today. Gotta get up to London and buy all your stuff for school. Harry was turning over the wizard coin and looking at them. He had just thought of something which made him feel as though the happy balloon inside him had got a puncture. Hagrid? Said Hagrid, who was pulling on his huge boots. I haven't got any money, and you heard Uncle Vernon last night. He won't pay for me to go and learn magic. Don't worry about that, said Hagrid, standing up and scratching his head. Do you think your parents didn't leave you anything? But if their house was destroyed, they didn't keep their gold in their house, boy. Nah. First off, for us, it's in Wizard Banks. Have a sausage. They're not bad cold, and I wouldn't say to a bit of And I wouldn't say no to a bit of birthday cake neither. Wizard have banks? Just one, Granger, run by Goblin. Harry dropped the bit of sausage he was holding. Goblins? Yeah, so you'll be mad to try and rob it, and I'll tell you that. Never mess with goblins, Harry. Granger, it's the safest place in the world for anything you want to keep safe, except maybe Hogwarts. As a matter of fact, I gotta visit Granger anyway, for Dumbledore Hogwarts business. Hagrid drew himself proudly. He usually get me to do important stuff for him. Fetching you, getting things from Granger. No, he can't trust me, see? Got everything. Come on, then. Got everything? Come on, then. Harry followed Hagrid out on the rock. The sky was quite clear now, and the sea gleamed in the sunlight. The boat Uncle Vernon had hired was still there, with lots of water in the bottom after the storm. How did you get here? Harry asked, looking around for another boat. Flew, said Hagrid. Flew? Yeah, but we'll go back in this. Not supposed to use magic now, I've got ya. They settled down the boat. Harry was still staring at Hagrid, trying to imagine him flying. See's a shame to row, though, said Hagrid, giving Harry another of his sideways look. If I was to speed things up a bit, would you mind not to mention it at Hogwarts? Of course not, said Harry, eager to see more magic. Hagrid pulled out his pink umbrella again, tapped it, twice on the side of the boat and they sped off toward land. What would be mad to try and grab Bridget? Harry asked. Spell enchantment, said Hagrid, unfolding his newspaper. Harry had learned from Uncle Vernon that people like to left alone while he did this, but it was very difficult. He never had so many questions in his life. Ministry magic messing things up as usual, Hagrid muttered, turning the page. There's a Ministry of Magic? Harry asked before he could stop himself. Of course, said Hagrid. They wanted Dumbledore for minister, of course, but he'd never leave Hogwarts, so old Cornelius Fudge got the job. Budgeler, if ever there was one. So he pelted Dumbledore with owls every morning, asking for advices. But what does a Ministry of Magic do? Well, their main job is to keep it from muggles that there's still witch and wizard up and down the country. Why? Blamey Harry, everyone would be wanting magic solution to their problem. Nah, we're best left alone. At this moment, the boat bumped gently into the harbor wall. Hagrid folded up his newspaper and they clambered up the stone step to the street. Passersby stared a lot at Hagrid as they walked through the little town to the station. Harry couldn't blame them. Not only was Hagrid twice as tall as It kept pointing at perfectly ordinary things like parking mirrors and saying loudly, "See that, Harry? Things these muggles dream up, eh?" "Hagrid," said Harry, panting a bit as he ran to keep up. "Did you say there are dragons at Gadget?" "Oh, so they said," said Hagrid, cringy like a dragon. "You would like one. I wanted one ever since I was a kid. Here we go." They had reached the station. There's a train to London in 5-minute time. Hagrid, who didn't understand muggle money, as he called it, gave the notes to Harry as he could buy their tickets. People stared more than ever on the train. Hagrid took up 2 seats and sat knitting that looked like a canary yellow circus tent. "Still got your letter, Harry?" he asked as he counted a stitch. Harry took the parchment envelope out of his pocket. "Good," said Hagrid. "There's a list there of everything you need." Harry unfolded a second piece of paper he had noticed the night before and read. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First year, student will require 3 sets of plain work robe, black, 1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear, 1 pair of protective glove, dragon hide or similar, 1 winter cloak, black, silver fascinating. Please note that all pupil clothes should carry name tags. Set book. All students should have a copy of each of the following: The Standard Book of Spell, Grade 1, by Miranda Gostrok. A History of Magic by Basil Backshot. Magical Theory by Albert Thwaffling. A Beginner Guide to Transfection by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herb and Fungi by Philida Spore. Magical Dwarf and Poison by Arzal Ginger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by the Next Geometer. The Dark Force, a Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. Other equipment: 1 wand, 2 calendar, pewter standard size 2. A set of glass or crystal field, 1 telescope, 1 set black scale. Student may also bring an owl or a cat or a toad. Parents are reminded that first years are not allowed their own broomstick. Can we buy all this in London? Harry wondered aloud. If you know where to go. Harry had never been to London before, although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going. He was obviously not used to getting there in ordinary way. He got stuck in the ticket barrier on the underground and complained loudly that the seats were too small and the train too slow. I don't know how the Muggle managed without magic, he said as they climbed a broken down escalator which led up to a building road lined with shop. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. They passed bookshops, a music store, hamburger bars, and cinema, but nowhere that looked as if they could sell you a magic wand. There was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold spellbook and broomstick? Might this not all be some huge joke that the Dursley had cooked up? If Harry had known that Dursley had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. This is it, said Hagrid, coming to a halt. The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place. It was a tiny, grubby-looking pap. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry would have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the leaking cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had been the most peculiar feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in the corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in top hat was talking to the old barman. He was quite bald and looked like a gummy walnut. The low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the barman reached for a glass and saying, "The usual, Hagrid." "Can't, Tom. I'm on Hogwarts business," said Hagrid, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord," said the barman, peering at Harry. Can this be?" The Leaky Cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the old barman. "Harry Potter, what an honor!" He hurried out from behind his bar, rushed toward Harry, and seized his hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter. Welcome back." Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without releasing it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scrapping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the Leaky Cauldron. "Doris Crockfoot, Mr. Porter. Can't believe I'm meeting you at last." "So proud, Mr. Porter. I'm just so proud." "Always want to shake your hand. I'm all flutter. Delighted, Mr. Porter. Just can't tell you Dingle's the name. Daedalus Dingle." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as the Daedalus Dingle top hat fell off in excitement. "You bowed to me once in a shop." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as Daedalus Dingle top hat fell off in excitement. "You bowed to me once in a shop." "He remembered!" cried Daedalus Dingle, looking round at everyone. "Did you hear that? He remembered me!" Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward, very nervously. One of his eyes were twitching. "Professor Quirrell," said Hagrid. "Harry, Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts." "Porter," stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. "Can't tell how I'm pleased to meet you. What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell? Defense against the dark art?" muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he would rather not think about it. "Not that you needed a porter," he laughed nervously. "You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I've got to pick up a new book on vampire myself." He looked terrified at the very thought, but the other wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It took almost 10 minutes to get away from them all. At last, Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the bubble. Must get on, lots to buy. Come on, Harry. Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar and out in a small walled courtyard where there was nothing but a dust and a few weeds. Harry grinned at Harry. Told you, didn't I? Told you you was famous. Even Professor Quirrell's trembling to meet you. Mind you, he's usually trembling. Is he always that nervous? Oh yeah, poor bloke. Brilliant mind. He was fined while he was studying out a book, but then he took a year off to get some first hand experiments. They say he met vampire in the Black Forest, and there was a nasty bit of trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of the student, scared of his own subject. Now, where's me umbrella? Vampire? Hags? Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting brick in the wall above the dustbin. 3 up, 2 across, he muttered. Right, stand back, Harry. He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of the umbrella. The brick he had touched quivered and wriggled in the middle. A small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, there was facing an archway large enough even for Hagrid, an archway on the sculpted street which twisted and turned out of sight. Welcome, said Hagrid to Diagon Alley. Welcome, said Hagrid, to Diagon Alley. He grinned at Harry. He grinned at Harry, amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, all size, copper, brass, peterware, silver, self-stringing collapsible, and a sign hanging over them. Yeah, you'll be needing one, said Hagrid, but we gotta get you money first. Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shop, the thing outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an archery was shaking her head as they passed a dragon liver, 16 sickle an ounce. They're mad. A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying, Ekla Owl Emperor. Tawny, Screech, Burn, Brown, and Snowy, several boys of about Harry's age, had their nose pressed against a window with a broomstick in it. Look, Harry heard one of them say, the new Nimbus 2000, fattest ever. There were shops selling ropes, shops selling telescope, and strange silver instrument Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with a barrel of hats, a barrel of bats' slings and eels' eyes, tottering piles of spellbook, quills and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globe of moons. Gridger, said Hagrid. They had reached a snowy white building which towered over the other little shop. Standing beside its burnished bronze door, wearing a uniform of scarlet gold, was, yeah, that's a goblin, said Hagrid quietly as they walked up the white stone step toward him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a squirty, clever face, a pointed beard, and, Harry noticed, very long-fingered feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with word engraved upon them. Enter, stranger, but take heed of what await the sin of greed. For those who take but do not care, must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floor a treasure that will never yours, thief, you have been warned, beware of finding more than treasure there. Like I said, you'll be mad to try and rob it, said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed them through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall, about 100 more goblins were sitting in a high stool behind a long counter, scribbling in a large ledger, weighing coin on brass scale. Examining precious stone through eyelashes. There was too many doors to count. There was too many door to count. Leading off the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. "Morning," said Hagrid to a free goblin. "We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe." "You've got his key, sir." "Got it here somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pocket on the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuit over the goblin book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on their right, weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals. "Got it," said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. "That seemed to be in order, and I've always also got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest. "It's about you-know-what in Vault 713. It's about you-know-what in the Vault 713. The goblin read the letter carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "I will have someone to take you down to the both vault. Griphook." Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all the dog biscuit back inside his pocket, he and Harry followed Griphook toward one of the door leading up the hall. "What's the you-know-what in the Vault 713? Harry asked. "Can't tell you that," said Hagrid mysteriously. "Very secret, Hogwarts business. Dumbledore trusted me more than my job worth to tell you that." Griphook held the door about open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. There were a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torch and sloped steeply downward, and there were a little railway track on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the track toward them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and were off. At first, they just hurtled with a maze of twisting passenger. Harry tried to remember left, right, 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 left, middle, fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of the passage and twisted around to see if it was a dragon, but too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and floor. "I never know," Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. "What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite?" "Stalagmite's got an M in it," said Hagrid. "And don't ask me a question just now. I think I'm gonna be sick." He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passageway, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knee trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped and saw his mound of gold coins of silver, heap of little bronze nuts. "All yours," smiled Hagrid. "All Harry's?" It was incredible. The Dursley couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained about how much Harry cost them to keep? All the time there had been a small fortune belonging to him, buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of into a bag. "The gold one are galleons," he explained. 17 silver sickle into a galleon and 29 nuts into sickle. It's easy enough, right? That would be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you." He turned to Griphook. "Vault 713 now, please, and can we go more slowly?" "One speed only," said Griphook. They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled around tight corners. They went rattling over underground ravine, and Harry leaned over the side to try and see what was down the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. Stand back, said Griphook importantly. He struck the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. If anyone but a Gidget goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. In through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. How about do you check to see if anyone inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years. How often do you check to see if anyone inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault. Harry was sure, and he leant forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels in the very least, but at very first he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped up in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but knew better than to ask. Come on, back in the informal car, and don't talk to me on the buoy back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid. On wildcard ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside Gidget. Harry didn't know where to run first now that he had a bag full of money. He didn't know how many galleons there were to be found to know that he was holding more money than he had in his whole life, more money than even Dudley had ever had. Might as well get your new uniform, said Hagrid, nodding toward Madame Malkinrobe's for occasion. Listen, Harry, wouldn't you mind if I slip off the pick-me-up in the leaky cauldron? I hate them Gidget card. He did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shop alone, feeling nervous. Madame Malkin was a squat, small witch dressed in almost Hogwarts, dear, she said when Harry started to speak. Got a lot here. Another young man being fitted up just now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing back a footstool, while a second, which pinned up his long black robe. Madame Malkin stood Harry on stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it in the right length. Hello, said the boy. Hogwarts, too? Yes, said Harry. My father next door buying my books, and mother up the street looking at the wand, said the boy. He had a poor drawling voice. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at the racing broom. I don't see why first year can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one, and I'll smuggle it in somehow. Harry strongly reminded Dudley. Have you got your own broom? The boy went on. No, said Harry. Play Quidditch at all? No, Harry said again, wondering what on earth Quidditch could be. I do. Father says it's a crime. If I'm not picked to play for my house, I must say I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet? No, said Harry, feeling more stupid to be in a minute. Well, no one really know until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family have been. Imagine being a Hufflepuff. I think I would leave, wouldn't you? Said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. I say, look at that man, said the boy suddenly, nodding toward the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry and pointing at 2 large ice cream to show he couldn't come in. That's Hagrid, said Harry, pleased to know something the boy didn't. He worked at Hogwarts. Oh, said the boy. I've heard of him. He's sort of servant, isn't he? He's the gamekeeper, said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every second. He was liking the boy less and less every second. Yes, exactly. I heard he's sort of a savage. Live in a hut in the school ground, and every now and then he'd get drunks, try to do magic, and end up setting fire in his bed. I think he's brilliant, said Harry coldly. Do you? Said the boy with a slight sneer. Why is he with you? Where are your parents? They're dead, said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going the matter with this boy. Oh, sorry, said the other. I'm not sounding sorry at all, but they were our kind, weren't they? They were a witch and a wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're not just the same. They'll never have been brought up to know our way. Some of them have never been heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter Imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding family. What's your surname anyway? But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, That's you, done, my dear, said Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy. Hopped down from the footstool. Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose, said the darling boys. Harry was rather quiet as he ate ice cream. Hagrid had bought him chocolate and raspberry with chopped nut. What's up? Said Harry. Nothing, Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry cheered up a bit. We found a bottle of ink that changed colors you wrote. When they had left the shop, he said, Hagrid, what's Quidditch? Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know, not knowing about Quidditch. Don't make me feel worse, said Harry. He told Hagrid about the Peel Boy and Madame Malkins. And he said people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. You're not from a Muggle family. If you know who you were, he's grown up. He's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You see him in Leaky Cauldron. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw. For the only one with magic in him in a long line of Muggles. Look at your mum. Look what she had a sister. Look what she had a sister. So what is Quidditch? It's our sport, wizard sport. It's like football in the Muggle world. Everyone follow Quidditch. Play up in the air, our broomstick, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules. And what are Slytherin and Hufflepuff? Schoolhouses. There's 4. Everyone say Hufflepuff are a lot of duffer, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily. Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin, said Hagrid darkly. There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was? You know who was at Hogwarts? Yeah, years and years ago, said Hagrid. They brought Harry's school back books in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked and ceiling with books as large as paving stone bound in leather, book the size of postage, stamped and covered with silk, books full of peculiar symbol, and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who never read anything, would have been a while to get his hand on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from the curse and counter-curse, bewitch your friend and wild from enemies. With the latest reverse, Harry lost jelly legs, tongue-tying, and much, much more by Professor Vunch's Verdon. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but they're not to use magic in Muggle world except in a very special circumstance, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them cursed yet. You'll need a lot more study before you get to that level. Hagrid won't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It's, say, pewter on your list, but they got a nice set of scale for weighing potion ingredients and collapsible brass telescope. And when they visit for alchemy, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell, a mixture of bad eggs and rotten cabbage, barrel of slimy stuff stood on the wall, bundle of feathers, string or fangs, and snarled claw hung from the ceiling, while Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for supplies of some basic potion ingredients for Harry. Harry himself examined silver unicorn horn at 21 galleons each, and molten clear black beetle eyes, 5 nets of scoop. Outside the apothecary, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just your wand left. Oh yeah, and I still haven't got your birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Tell you what, I'll got you an animal. Not a toad. Toad went out of fashion years ago. You'll be laughed at, and I don't like cats. They made me sneeze. I'll get you an owl. All the kids want owl. They're dead useful. Carry your post and everything. 20 minutes later, they left Ellipse Owl Rumpy, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering, jewel-bright eyes. Harry now carried a large cage which held And that's Mr. Harry now carried a large cage which had a beautiful snowy owl fast asleep with her head under a wing. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, said Hagrid gruffly. Didn't expect you have a lot of present from the Dursley. Just Ollivander left now. Only place for one. Ollivander, and you gotta have the best wand. A magic wand. This was what Harry had been really looking forward to. The last shop was narrow and shabby. Peel- Peeling gold letter over the door read Ollivander, marker of find wand since 382 BC. A single wand lay on a faded purple cushion in a dusty window. A tinkling bell rang somewhere in the depth of the store as they stepped inside. It was a tiny place, empty except for a single splendid chair, which Hagrid sat on to wait. Harry felt strangely as though he had entered a very strict library. He swallowed a lot of new questions and had entered a very strict library. He swallowed a lot of occurred him look instead at that of near a box piled neatly right up to the ceiling. For some reason, the back of his neck prickled. The very dust and silence in here seemed to tingle with some secret magic. Good afternoon, said a soft voice. Harry jumped. Hagrid must have jumped too, because there was a loud crunching noise and he got quickly off the splintery chair. An old man was standing before them, his white pale eyes shining like a moon through the gloom of the shop. Hello, said Harry awkwardly. Ah, yes, said the man. Yes, I thought I would be seeing you soon, Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's eyes. It seemed only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand, 10 1/4 inch long, squishy, made of willow. Nice one for charm work. Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he would blink. Those silvery eyes were a bit creepy. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mushroom wand, 11-inch pale, a little more power, and excellent for transfaction. Well, I say your father favored it's really the one that chose the wizard, of course. Miss Ollivander had come so close that he and Harry were almost nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes. And that's where Miss Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with a long white finger. I'm so sorry to say I sold the wand that did it, he said softly. 13 1/2 inch. Yeah, powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hand. Well, if I'd known that wand was going out into the world to do. He shook his head, and then Harry, to relief, spotted Hagrid. Rubus Hagrid, how nice to see you in. Oh, 16-inch, a rarely bendy, wasn't it? It was, sir, yes, said Hagrid. Good one, that one. But suppose they snap in half when you got expelled, said Miss Ollivander, suddenly stern. Yes, they did. Yes, said Hagrid, shuffling his feet. I've still got the piece, though, he added brightly. But you don't use them, said Ollivander sharply. Oh, no, sir, said Hagrid quickly. Harry noticed he gripped his pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke. Said Miss Ollivander, giving Hagrid a piercing look. Well, now, Mr. Potter, let me see. He pulled a long tape measure with silver making of his pocket. Which is your wand arm? Well, I'm right-handed, said Harry. Hold out your arm. That's it. He measured Harry from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and round his head as he measured. He said, Every Ollivander wand has a core as a powerful magical substance. Miss Potter, we use unicorn hair, phoenix, tail feather, and the heartstring of dragons. No two Ollivander wands are the same. Just as no two unicorn, dragon, or phoenix are quite the same. And of course, you will never get such good result with another wizard name. Wizard wand, Harry suddenly realized. that the tape measure, which was measuring between the nostril, was doing this on its own. Mr. Ollivander was sliding around the shelf, taking down boxes. "That will do," he said, and the tape measure crumbled into a heap on the floor. "Right then, Mr. Porter, try this one. Benchwood and dragon heartstring, 9-inch, nice and flexible. Just take it and give it away." Harry took a wave and, feeling foolish, waved it around a bit, but Mr. Ollivander snatched it out of his hand almost at once. "Maple and phoenix feather, 7-inch, quite wimpy. Try." Harry tried, but he had hardly raised the wand when it, too, was snatched back by Mr. Ollivander. No. Here, ebony and unicorn ear, 8.5-inch, springy. Go. Go on. Try it out." Harry tried and tried. He had no idea what Mr. Ollivander was waiting for. The piled tried one was mounting higher and higher on the spindly chair, but the more one Mr. Ollivander pulled from the shelf, the happier he seemed to become. "Tricky customer, huh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match." "Here somewhere, I wonder now. Yes, why not? Unusual combination. Holly and phoenix feather. 11-inch, nice and supple." Harry took the wand. He felt a sudden warmth in his finger. He raised the wand above his head, brought it in swishing down through the dusty air, and stream of red and gold spark shot from the end of like a firework, throwing dancing spot of light onto the wall. Hagrid whooped and clapped, and Mr. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed! Oh, very good! Well! How curious! How very curious!" He put Harry's wand back into the box and wrapped it in brown paper, still murmuring, "Curious. Sorry," said Harry, "but what's curious?" Mr. Ollivander fixed Harry with a pale stare. "I remember every one I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single one. It's happened that the phoenix whose tail feather is in yours wand gave another feather, just one another. It is very curious indeed that you should be distinct for this one when its brother gave you that scar." Harry swallowed. "Yes, 13.5-inch. Yeah, you. Curious indeed how these things happen. The wand chose the wizard, remember. I think we must expect great thing from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great thing. Terrible, yes, but great." Harry shivered. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander too much. He paid 7 gold galleons for his wand, and Mr. Ollivander bowed them from his shop. The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Harry and Hagrid made their way back down to Diagon Alley. Back through the leaky cauldron, now empty. Harry didn't speak at all as they walked down the road. He didn't even notice how much people were gawping at them on the underground Latin, as they were all funny-shaped package with a sleeping snowy owl on his lap, up another escalator, out into Paddington Station. Harry only realized they were when Hagrid tapped him on the shoulder. "Get time for a bit to eat before your train leave," he said. He bought Harry a hamburger, and they sat down on a plastic seat to eat them. Harry kept looking around. Everything looked so strange somehow. "You all right, Harry? You're very quiet." Harry wasn't sure he could explain. It was just the best birthday of his life, and yet he chewed his hamburger, trying to find the word. "Everyone think I'm special," he said at last. "All those people in the leaky cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander, but I don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great thing? I'm famous, and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. I don't know what happened when I mean the night my parent died." Hagrid leant across the table behind the wild beard and eyes round. He wore a very kind smile. "Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone start from the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine. Just be yourself." I know it's hard. You've been a single out, that's always hard. But you'll have a great time at Hogwarts. I did, still do, smart of fact. Hagrid helped Harry on the train that would take him back to the Dursley, then handed him an envelope. Your ticket for Hogwarts, he said. 1st of September. King Cross, it's all on your ticket. Any problem with the Dursley? Send me a letter with your owl. She'll know where to find me. See you soon, Harry. The train pulled out of the station. Harry wanted to watch Hagrid until he was out of sight. He rose in his seat and pressed his nose against the window, but he blinked and Hagrid had gone. So this is the end of this chapter. It's a pretty long chapter, but thank you for coming and have a wonderful time in your day.